I'm Amanda Freitag, and I'm a judge on Food Network's Chopped. You and I are gonna make my favorite cream spinach recipe right now. This recipe from my cookbook, The Chef Next Door, is one of my favorites. What do we need? 2 pounds of spinach. This looks like a massive amount of spinach, but really it's only 2 pounds. As you know, if you've ever cooked spinach before, it cooks down to nothing very quickly. You can use fresh, which I highly recommend, or frozen, which is a good product. You just have to make sure you get most of the liquid out of it once it's thawed. So I have here some boiling water. I'm gonna put a pinch of kosher salt, just a little bit, because I'm gonna season the rest of the recipe. In goes the spinach, and we're gonna work pretty quickly because I want all of this spinach to cook as fast as possible and at the same rate. Okay. So you'll see what's gonna happen here. That pound of spinach is gonna cook so quickly. I'm gonna make a little room in my water for the second pound. This is a smaller baby type spinach. This is really tender and cooks fast. If you use a bigger leaf spinach, it's gonna cook longer, and make sure you remove the stems. These little bit of stems that are left here are gonna melt instantly. Now, this is about it. Maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds. I'm gonna take it out because this is going to cook again. I just wanted to wilt it enough so that I could squeeze it out and then get it into the sauce. I actually like cream spinach on my Thanksgiving table. It's a side that's a little bit unexpected on Thanksgiving, but it's so good. It's just simple and delicious. Spinach is hearty enough that it stands up to the bechamel sauce, which you don't know what that is, do you? I'm gonna teach you. I'm gonna show you what it is. I'm getting the spinach out of the water. Now I have to drain it and I have to squeeze out the liquid, but I can't do it right now. It's way too hot. So I'm gonna set it aside, cool it down, and while that's cooling, I'm gonna make the sauce base, which is called bechamel. Bechamel starts with a roux. Roux is flour and butter. Very simple, very basic. So the butter is gonna go into the pan. This pan is on low to medium heat. Yes, it's an entire stick of butter, but we're using 2 pounds of spinach. I love that smell of melted butter. Oh my God. And this roux is gonna be what I call a blonde roux. I'm just gonna cook it until the flour is cooked, no longer raw. So as soon as my butter is melted, I'm gonna put in the flour. Basically, this is kind of a 1-to-1 ratio, and you see how that's kind of bubbling up and the flour is cooking in the butter. This is beautiful. It's wet sand, it's bubbling. The flour and the butter have come together. You don't want any lumps at all. You wanna make sure you keep stirring because you do not want this to stick. And this, my pan is on low heat. So you wanna cook it. You're gonna cook it for about 3 minutes. Now you might ask me, well, who cares? Why do I have to cook the flour? You have to cook the flour for multiple reasons. Number one, flavor. You don't wanna taste raw flour. Number two, you have to develop the gluten here. You have to. Otherwise it won't thicken the sauce properly. So I'm gonna taste it now. Really chalky, kind of tastes like wet sand. But as I continue to cook it, now you can see it changed a bunch already. It looks more like a sauce. It looks a little more blonde, and it's come together, and it's because the flour is cooking. So now it's almost ready, and I'm gonna taste it again and make sure that it tastes cooked. Really good. I'm gonna pull this off the heat just for a second. I always use all-purpose flour because of the gluten and the amount of protein in that flour. We want it to really be able to thicken the milk and the cream. So I put it back on the heat and I'm gonna combine the milk, and I'm taking this one step further by adding a little bit of cream. Cream is gonna give it a really rich flavor for the spinach. Now you can see what's happening. There's a lot of flour and a little bit of milk, and it looks like it's gonna be lumpy, but you just keep whisking. And you get the milk in slowly and it'll all come together. Don't be afraid right now. Don't panic. This is where most cooks panic, but you're not going to. You are in control. So you can see in that 1 second where I could have panicked, it all came together. And I'm gonna slowly add the rest of the milk. Keep it moving, keep it whisking. Make sure it comes together before you add more liquid. And this is your bechamel sauce base. And look at how beautifully this comes together. And that's just the milk, and then I'm adding heavy cream. If you wanna go all milk, go ahead. But I love the creaminess of heavy cream with the cream spinach. So this heavy cream is additional fat. Fat is flavor, people. Fat is flavor. Okay, so my milk and my cream are in. My heat is low. I want to keep it that way. I don't want my sauce to break. I know you've heard that term before too. Just means that it's going to separate. And we're just going to cook that until it gets thick, comes together, and is ready for the spinach. Now I'm going to season this right now. And I'm going to put a little kosher salt, a tiny bit of black pepper. I'm also going to use a little bit of cayenne in this recipe. I think whenever you're cooking a sauce that has milk and cream or cheese or something that has a high level of dairy or fat, a little tiny bit of spice goes a long way. It helps just cut through. Okay, so I've seasoned that and I want to taste it in another tasting spoon. Now, as you can see, I'm tasting the sauce at every step. Sounds weird, but if it doesn't taste good now, that spinach is not going to taste good at the end. This tastes good to me. I taste the milk, I taste the cream, I'm now tasting the butter and the flour coming together, but it's not cooked. It needs to thicken further. While this is thickening, you're going to cut onions and garlic for the rest of the recipe. Okay, so we have a Spanish onion here. Again, I'm just cutting it so that the core is intact and then peeling it. And I'm gonna get off that really slippery outer skin so that I can handle it while I'm dicing it. For this diced onion, I really want it to be nice and small because this is gonna melt in to the cream spinach. Face down on the cutting board, nice and secure, across. And this is where I control the size of the dice. These cuts will go a little bit closer together so that I create a smaller square when I cut back across. That's how you do it. That's how you make a smaller dice. And then you cut closer than you would on a larger dice, and it becomes nice and small and beautiful little squares. Don't waste that end of the onion. Cut it into strips. And then dice small. With the onion that size, it's simply just going to melt. Same thing here. Nice and close together so that you get a smaller dice. Let's get the end of that onion. No waste. All right, and we're also going to mince a little bit of garlic for this recipe. I love garlic and spinach. There's about 3 cloves for 2 pounds. This is going to be minced really small because I want this to melt. I'm going to start sauteing the onions. I have a hot pan here. While I'm doing that, I'm going to check on my bechamel, which looks so different already. Really thick, almost like lava. You see those little air bubbles going, right? That tells you that this sauce has already changed, already thickened. If we were to taste it now, which we are, get your spoon. I'll wait for you. Get your spoon. I promise you're gonna love it. It's creamy and good, but to me, it still has a little bit of flour in the background. So I'm gonna continue to cook it. Make sure it's on low, low heat. If your heat still seems a little bit high, take your pan and move it off to the side. It'll continue to cook, but that's a good way to adjust the heat even if you're on the lowest temperature. So I'm gonna put my onions in the pan, start to sweat them. The best description for sweating vegetables really is an onion because it gives off so much liquid when you sweat it, which is what we want. We want those natural juices to come out, and the way to coax them out is with a little bit of salt. I don't want any color on this because, again, I want that beautiful creamy look of creamed spinach. I don't want the garlic in there with it because I don't want the garlic to burn, A, and I want the garlic flavor to come out at a different time. So I'm peeling the garlic. Please, if you can, use fresh garlic. I know it's hard to peel, I know it's time consuming, but the flavor profile is completely different than pre-prepared garlic. If it's the only way I'm gonna get you cooking, you can buy already peeled garlic, but not already chopped. Otherwise you get chopped. Okay, I'm mincing up the garlic. I want this to be nice and small. My onions are sweating. And then we're gonna squeeze some spinach. Okay, in goes the garlic. Make sure you cook that out. We don't want that spiciness of the garlic to come through. We want that to be cooked. So, onions and garlic are almost ready, and I have my spinach here that's cooled and ready to squeeze. Now I'm squeezing it out because you don't want this liquid from the spinach to dilute the sauce and dilute all those beautiful flavors that you built with the onion and the garlic. So I'm just squeezing it out in the colander. Really get as much liquid out as possible. You're gonna see there's even more liquid, and when you squeeze a little further, even more liquid will come out. Okay, so everything's ready to come together. The bechamel is here. The onions and the garlic are going in. And then the spinach. Now, what's gonna happen is this looks like a whole lot of bechamel sauce for this little bit of spinach, but you'll see it's just the right amount. You're gonna stir in the spinach and make sure that it's broken up. These leaves of spinach have to separate and kind of swim around in this bechamel sauce. This is where it gets exciting. This is where I like cooking. This is the part right here where this all comes together. All these flavors, the magic of sauce on vegetables. I get excited about this stuff. I hope you're excited along with me. So as you see, what you didn't think was gonna come together is these beautiful blanched leaves of spinach mixing with the bechamel sauce, all separating. They were in clumps, but they separated out. And now I'm gonna add in a little bit of nutmeg. Now I use a microplane, and I use a whole nutmeg. You can, of course, use ground nutmeg that you buy already ground, but this is the freshest, most flavorful way. Something about nutmeg and creamed spinach, it's just a wonderful flavor combination. It just adds a little bit of sweet spice to the garlic and the onion and the really vegetal flavor of the spinach. Guess what you and I are gonna do now? I heard you say it. We're gonna taste it. This is a really tough job I have. That is so good. Do you like it? Did you try it? What does yours need? A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, maybe some more cayenne. I'm gonna put a touch of kosher salt, and I'm gonna add a little more nutmeg. Nutmeg and creamed spinach, to me, is the ingredient that you should know is there, but not know is there, if you get me. Your guests are gonna be like, wait, what is that secret spice? You can tell them, or you cannot tell them. So let your spices blend in, let them melt in, and then you're gonna be ready to serve. That's a work of art right there. So we'll get a big bowl, and we'll get ready to serve it. So you can certainly just scoop it out into your serving bowl with a spoon or a ladle. Or if you're like me, I like to do things fast. Just lift up the pan, making sure you use kitchen towels, and pour it in. Oh, look at that. You can even serve this with a little Parmesan cheese or breadcrumb on top and make a crispy, crunchy topping. Maybe even a little lemon zest for brightening and lightening. That is just so beautiful. Perfectly mixed with sauce, spinach leaves. Grab yourself a little bowl so we can taste it again. And I can see the little pieces of onion and garlic in there, but they're not the star. The spinach is the star here. The sauce is the star. You're the star because you made this. So we're gonna go ahead and taste it. The spinach has still a little bit of bite to it, which I love. I'm getting nutmeg. I'm getting the creaminess from the heavy cream and the butter and the flour. The onion has a little bit of bite. The garlic is just subtle. Everything is coming together as one. I can't taste one in particular flavor, and that's exactly what you want. Thanks for cooking along with me and eating with me and tasting with me. I hope this becomes one of your favorite dishes to put on your table.